Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Buckeye Weekly podcast. I am Tony Gerdeman here, as always, with Tom Orr. Tom, how's it going?
Tony, we celebrated the end of football season with the traditional getting sick at the same time, a tradition unlike any other at the end of a long football season. I'm glad that we are both finally now on the mend and our condition has improved to alive just in time for an alive show, Tony.
Definitely and a live show, Tom. I've decided next year, and it's also been decided for me by my wife, around December or so, just start, orange juice and vitamin C for about a month straight, preparing for all of the ick that we run into over the course of a postseason. But yes, we are all on the mend. We are here, plenty to talk about tonight. Go ahead and throw your super chats in there, your regular chats as well. And yes, Jacob Robinson, this is in fact a live show. Tom, show him your newspaper.
I have something about the Challenger. So this is, it's at least recorded after 1986, if that helps at all. I'm amazed, Tony, that you successfully anticipated someone asking a question on this pre-recorded show that someone just presumably asked in the live chat after that. Well done.
Yeah, well, I'm pretty good at presuming questions. Other questions that I think people will be asking about what's going on with the offensive line coach and the quarterbacks coach and the offensive coordinator and even the defensive side of things. And we'll touch on all of that. And so, a bunch of reports on the offensive side of the coaching staff. So we can go ahead and start there. And it came out earlier today. Tyler Bowen from Virginia Tech is looking like the guy on the offensive line. And so I was reaching out to people about him because it's not somebody that, I'll be honest, Tom, when I was looking at all possible offensive line coaches, I wasn't looking at Virginia Tech's quarterbacks coach. So that's on me.
Sounds like a lack of imagination, if you ask me.
Yeah. But what I did hear back is that the people at Virginia Tech, the recruiting department especially, really, really liked him and thought he was really, really good. And one of the things we've been saying throughout this whole thing is all three of these coaches that are going to be hired or moved up, it's going to raise the recruiting game of the Ohio State coaching staff overall. And I think that happens here with Tyler Bowen.
Yeah, it's interesting that when you see a name that you don't have a whole lot of background with, first of all, just prepare yourself for the fact that I'm going to call him Tyler Barron at some point, the former defensive line. you did that on the board.
I called him Tyler Melton, who's like a quarterback
no,
somewhere.
That's Mitchell Melton. No. Yeah, I'm 100% going to call him Tyler Barron. Apologies in advance. That's a former Tennessee defensive lineman who Ohio State was after like 6 years ago. But anyway, so enough about my weird brain. Let's talk about Tyler Bowen. And, the recruiting piece of the offensive line has unquestionably been iffy the last two offensive line coaches or further back than that. Greg Stidwara, that was perpetually the question with him was, why are you missing on these in-state guys? Why are you not, why are you not hitting more consistently with guys who Ohio State should be able to get and somehow never seem to get? And then even with Justin Fry, the development piece was there with Justin Fry, but it felt still like the recruiting piece was just, it was like the development piece was here and the recruiting piece was like, maybe there. And obviously a good enough offensive line to win the national championship, but there was still just kind of like, there are guys that you should be getting. And the classes were a little light in the end. And there's a strategy piece that goes into that and all that kind of stuff. You look at Tyler Bowen's recruiting list, and I just pulled this up on 247, but they and these lists are always a little bit like, it's not an exact science. It's not, this was the only person that ever talked to this person by any means. But you go through the list, and I was struck by how many people I saw that I went, oh, yeah, I remember him. Mm-hmm. Landon Tengwall, offensive lineman. Ohio State really wanted him several years ago. Top 50 kind of offensive lineman nationally. That was a Tyler Bowen recruit. Rasheed Walker, tackle, went to Penn State. Top 60, top 65 kind of national recruit. That was a Tyler Bowen recruit. And you go through the list and it's like, a bunch of 4 stars, Zachy Wheatley, safety, you probably remember him. Olu Fashanu, offensive tackle, who was like a first round kind of talent out of for Penn State. He was the primary recruiter there. But then you get down to, Tony, a lowly 3-star tight end out of Atlee High School in Mechanicsville, Virginia, Tyler Warren, Tony. I mean, listen, if you're into 3-star tight ends, and literally everyone I know is, that's not a bad one. So, and I even saw Len Tengwall talking about it, or was asked about it or something like that. And, talked about what a great recruiter Tyler Bowen is. And if he can coach offensive line, and we'll see, that's not something he's had to do for several years. If he can coach offensive line, it does seem like the recruiting piece of that job has potentially been upgraded.
Well, and also a couple of tight ends that they landed at Ohio State was in Brenton Strange and Theo Johnson. Mm-hmm. So he's gone up against Ohio State and won. But let's see the development aspect of it show up as well. And he's going to have an opportunity. There's some good linemen on this Ohio State team who got a lot of experience. Some young guys who got a lot of experience this year who are coming into their own, and there's something to work with for sure. With Brian Hartline, I think it was Matt Zenitz or Pete Nakos, I believe, from On3, saying that Hartline's going to be given the play calling duties. And this is something that if this was what Brian Hartline wanted, eventually Ryan Day was going to have to come to the decision, like either I'm going to let you, or you're going to have to go do it somewhere else. And I saw somebody on the message board, the Buckeye had a message board presented by Jeff Ruby's Columbus, say like, gosh, yeah, it's Hartline. I was hoping for a big name hire. To which my reply was, if this was any other program in the country landing Brian Hartline, it would be a big name hire. So don't let familiarity breed contempt here when, sure, he's a first-time play caller, but he's going to be on a staff with guys who are not first-time play callers, like Ryan Day and Bowen. And, we could talk about Billy Fessler in a little bit as well. Like a lot of guys with experience calling plays. And when you have those people to rely on, it makes life easier for you. But, none of these announcements have been confirmed by Ohio State. So this is all, trusted reports as opposed to some untrusted reports that have come out recently on the defensive side of things. But
name one,
not those who shall not be named. But so Hartline getting this, like either he's going to be able to do it, and now or he's not, and now and so you can, and he knows as well. So at some point you've got to let him do it. This is his 18, 19, 20, what is the 7th year at Ohio State as a position coach. So, it's fantasy to think if he wants something else that you're only going to be able to keep him as a position coach. So, he's been offensive coordinator or co-coordinator for 2 years now, but now it sounds like Ryan Day is going to allow him to call plays. And Tom, you remember, as I do, 2 years ago when Brian Hartline got the gig as offensive coordinator, and Ryan Day was like, well, we'll see how spring goes.
Yeah, and then we saw how spring went, and then we saw how fall camp went, and we saw how the season went, and it was like, yeah, it was the old Greg Schiano bit when Greg Schiano was at Ohio State. He had gone through that whole thing where he was up for the Tennessee head coaching job, and then there was this big foo-fa-ra, and he was supposedly going to get it, and then he didn't get it, and then he kind of kept getting asked at these various events at Big Ten Media Days, or at Big Ten championship games or whatever it was. Hey, is it, what can you tell us about the Tennessee thing? It's not time to talk about Tennessee. And it was never time to talk about Tennessee. Like Greg Schiano went through multiple years at Ohio State. It was never time to talk about Tennessee. And that was kind of the first iteration of Brian Hartline as offensive coordinator. Like, is it time for Brian Hartline to call plays? No, it's not. The time's not right yet. Let's just see. Let's wait. And then you wait a little while. How about now? Is it no, still? It's, we're all talking. We like to get together and draw ball plays and all kind of stuff. But it's just, no, we're not. The timing's not quite right yet. And then the season was over, and then they hired Chip Kelly, and the timing was never right. And so now, with Brian Hartline having been in the system now another year, worked under Chip Kelly, worked obviously with Ryan Day, the offense has kind of continued to iterate as things have kind of gone along. I don't know that there's anyone in the world who's better qualified to know whether Brian Hartline is ready to call plays or not than Ryan Day. Ryan Day has been in a bunch of those meetings, probably most of those meetings. He knows what, he knows what Brian Hartline knows. He knows what he wants. He probably has made Brian Hartline aware of what he wants. He probably has still some overall guiding vision on that. And as you said, at some point, like, you got to let go. Like, you have to let go of the bicycle seat as you're teaching your kid to ride your bike. Unless you're going to run next to your kid's bike for the rest of his life, you're going to have to let go of the bicycle seat at some point. And I think we'll see, spring is a great time to let go of the bicycle seat, because it's like riding on grass. Like, yeah, it's going to be a little bumpy and it's going to be a little uneven, but if you fall, it doesn't really hurt anything. So let go of the bicycle seat in the spring, let him ride for a while and see how he goes. And if he crashes into a tree, well, get up and you can hold the bicycle seat again and let him go. But this is the time where you've got to do it at some point. Because as you said, you can't just like keep him in a glass jar on your shelf. And it's like, nope, you're just here for bringing in talented wide receivers and that's it. And making them good players and sending them off the NFL. And you never get to leave. Like, that's not how it works. And Brian Hartline obviously has aspirations beyond just being the Ohio State wide receivers coach. He's interviewed for a couple of head coaching positions over the years. And those were not ones that I thought he was particularly likely to get, but that's the kind of stuff that you're trying to do if you're trying to prepare yourself for potentially a bigger job in the future. So this is okay. You got to let him do this now. You're letting him take on this bigger role. You're positioning him for success. And, Ryan Day is still there to grab the bicycle seat if need be. But, at this point, like I said, I don't know that anyone is in a better position to feel like Brian Hartline is ready to go, more so than Ryan Day.
Now I'm imagining Ryan Day chasing Brian Hartline back into the receivers room. You get back in there. You recruit. You hear me? You're throwing a phone at him. Use this phone. Get out of here, you.
I have a feeling Brian Hartline will remember how to recruit and to coach wide receivers. I have a sense that will probably be true.
And again, like, none of this has been confirmed by Ohio State, but my thought and understanding, to go to Xander's question here, is that Brian Hartline's going to remain the receivers coach, because like all of the spots will be filled with the belief in the report that Billy Fessler is going to be the quarterback's coach, getting the bump up from assistant to the quarterback's coach to assistant quarterback's coach. And that's touching on the Jacob Robinson super chat. Thank you, Jacob. We still need to make another hire for offense. That's likely reported to be Billy Fessler, who came to Ohio State from UCLA with Chip Kelly. He was going to be Chip Kelly's quarterback's coach in 2024. Was hired in January of 2024 and then came to Columbus with Kelly. Was before that 2 years at Akron, won the first year as a quarterback's coach, second year as the OC. And before that, he was a grad assistant at Ohio State for 2 years. So he's been around. He understands Ryan Day. And to me, this one makes as much sense as any of the others, because Ryan Day, being as hands-on as he is with the quarterbacks, when he has guys who know what he wants from the quarterbacks and coaches it the way he wants, if this is one where you can make it as seamless as possible in terms of he teaches it the way Day wants it taught. He knows that he can trust him. He's gotten good feedback from the quarterbacks on him, presumably. And so he's been part of the program and knows how things work. So this is an opportunity to, yes, there are some sweeping changes, but this is a change that has some familiarity to it, because we've talked to the quarterbacks and they've, how many times has Will Howard mentioned Billy Fessler helping him out and things like that. So this was a guy that is becoming more and more known, and it's another nice, start, not a start, but like just a bump up. He's a pretty young guy, which is something that all of these guys are, with Tyler Bowen being 35, I think. And, of course, Billy Fessler being a grad assistant not too long ago. So there's something that Ryan Day obviously likes there. And again, I'm fascinated to see what he can do as a recruiter. Ohio State and having Ryan Day as a head coach is going to do a lot of your recruiting for you at quarterback. And then if you've got somebody that can lock you down, because, Corey Dennis was a pretty good recruiter as well. And I think a lot of that credit still goes to Ryan Day, and it will here as well. But I think there's plenty here, and clearly plenty here that Ryan Day likes about Billy Fessler, and his fans should as well.
Yeah, and he, as you said, has ties to Ohio State, was on the Ohio State staff. So you've got internal folks who know him well even before he came back last year. he worked with Chip Kelly at UCLA. He was a coordinator for Chip Kelly at UCLA, and very talented. One of those guys you saw consistently listed as rising star in the business, and now is the quarterback coach at Ohio State. But is just like Tyler Bowen, has some play calling experience, some coordinator experience. You're bringing in. I saw Sue asking at one point who's going to be in charge, who's going to help Hartline with the run game concepts. I feel like the answer to that is Tyler Bowen, who is going to be doing the offensive line piece of things, but also has the play calling piece. And you've got Billy Fessler, who has play calling and quarterback kind of experience in his past. All of that stuff kind of adds together. It gives you a bunch of different perspectives, a bunch of different folks who have some views on this kind of stuff and who can contribute in a meaningful way. And it's not just, oh, well, I have thoughts, like when your kid like pipes up like, oh, I know how you can, fix the gutter. Like, that's cute. Thank you very much. But, these are people who've actually done it in the past and have actual, like, your kid, your kid is a carpenter. So then your kid has feedback. And it's like, yeah, that's valuable feedback. That's what I think Ohio State's going to have. And, there's obviously, I think, a natural concern like, well, first time play caller, is it too many cooks in the kitchen? You have Ryan Day there. Ryan Day is there to be the Gordon Ramsay in this kitchen and just tell, listen, if someone needs to get bread put on both sides of their head, I feel like Ryan Day is going to be comfortable telling them what kind of sandwich they are. But I don't, when you have Ryan Day there, that kind of provides a lot of the guardrails around a lot of this kind of stuff. The run game diversified a little bit with Chip Kelly there, but guess what? Billy Fessler has coached with Chip Kelly the last several seasons. So guess who has a pretty good sense for what Chip Kelly's ideas on the run game are? Probably Billy Fessler. So that's something that may be beneficial to them as well.
Yes, Ryan Day will expedite, and he'll allow his cooks to cook. And then when he has to, he will yell. And sometimes he'll yell at somebody so much that person decides, you know what? I think I'm going to go work at Penn State.
Tony, did you see at Jim Knowles' first press conference at Penn State, he had 2 bottles of water on the table in front of him and no McDonald's coffee cup. And I tweeted something about, is there not McDonald's coffee in State College? And someone sent me a link to some TikTok from like a month or so ago. Apparently the McDonald's in State College closed. Like, this feels like information Jim Knowles could not possibly have had before before he made this decision. That feels like he's going to be like, I give him 3 days to find some kind of source of McDonald's coffee, because we never saw him without McDonald's coffee at Ohio State in 3 years at the Buckeyes.
Yeah, and I don't know if he had one right where he lived by, because there's one right next to the Woody at McDonald's. So I would imagine like he pulls out of the driveway and there's one like a half a block away, or maybe a mile away, that he gets on his way to the McDonald's at the Woody, and then he can finally get to work. But 2 waters for that guy, that's not, that's, I'm sure he's like, well, you get there and this is the whole buyer's remorse, and like, oh, I knew I should have the inspection look at the foundation, and it's like, well, if I'm sure why would you think, like, I'm sure there's a McDonald's, I shouldn't even have to ask about this. And you get there and you're like, there's no McDonald's in the entire like area. Like, what am I supposed to do? Make my own coffee like an idiot? I can't do that. Like, I'm a defensive coordinator. Stuff has to be done for me. Like, grad assistant has to go to like Harrisburg to get him coffee like every single day now.
Jacob, first of all, asked earlier about Billy Fessler. He was on staff last year. He was just not one of the 10. I always want to call them 10 countable assistants, which is not really a thing anymore, but you know what I mean. Like the 10 main assistants who can go on the road and recruit at a time. He was not one of those, but he was on staff sort of as I don't know if he was considered a QB guy, or a QC guy, or an analyst or something, but he was on staff, but not as one of the 10 coaches. Now he would be one of those coaches. Jacob also says Virginia Tech's offense wasn't great, but the running back was great. I'm always hesitant to look at a school like Virginia Tech and going like, well, this is what they did, so this is what's going to happen at Ohio State. Like, the talent base is so different. Your schedule is so different. It's, Virginia Tech is a place where you've always had to kind of do things a little left-handed. Like Beamer ball was a thing because they had to win that way, because you were not getting Ohio State level talent to Blacksburg no matter what. Like, every once in a while they hit the Tidewater area real hard for Michael Vick and Marcus Vick, and I think Lee Suggs might have been out of there. Like
Hmm.
some of the main really talented guys. But there were a bunch of like real scrappy 3-star white guys that they kind of had to scrape together, and they had to block a bunch of punts to do it that way. That's not what Ohio State has to do necessarily. They can win in a couple different ways. And if you can win that way, like great, that's wonderful. But I don't know that I look at what happened at Virginia Tech and go, this is also what's going to happen at Ohio State.
Well, in terms of the running game for Virginia Tech, like their leading rusher averaged 6.3 yards per carry. Their number 2 running back averaged 5.6, and both of those are good numbers. And Kyron Jones, a quarterback, averaged 3.4. He's a good runner, but some of those, a lot of that is sacks. So I'd say fair running game, but again, that's good for them. That's not really all that cogent, Tom, or germane to the situation here. Oh, Uncle Rico, he says Jim Knowles will be chewing caffeinated gum. That's a good idea. You can get anything caffeinated now. He may have had just like straight caffeine poured into those waters. We don't know. I saw somebody, is Tim Drevno, Doug Shepard asking, is Tim Drevno still with the team? That is my understanding. He still is. He is still part of the Ohio State directory in terms of the people finder for the university itself. And so that's always one place to go to see if somebody is still hired or newly gone. He is still listed. And again, another good assistant to have, and you give him some credit along with Justin Fryer with that offensive line last year, and Mike Seleni as well. Seleni off to UNLV, is that right?
Offensive line coach, yep.
Yeah. And so they'll need to find a new Mike Seleni, the assistant offensive line coach, along with Tim Drevno and new Tyler Bowen, and maybe he's got somebody in mind that he'll bring in.
And this is kind of like, I'm sure that there's someone somewhere going, everything is falling apart at Ohio State. Like, this is the most natural thing to happen after you win the national championship is everyone goes, well, their offensive line was pretty good. Well, their quarterback play was pretty good. Well, their defensive line play was pretty good. Well, that's why Chip Kelly's getting paid $6 million now to coach in the NFL, when Chip Kelly was not going to get a job as an offensive coordinator in the NFL last year. Your stock is high because you're coming off of a national championship. So, there is, I'm sure that there is a certain segment of the Ohio State fan base that cannot help themselves from doing the pets' heads are falling off thing. 2 weeks and 2 days after a national championship? Everyone's pets' heads are fine. I would not be too stressed. Like, this is the most normal thing to happen after you win a national championship. And it's a lot of the guys. It's not just, it's the coordinators, but it's also, Justin Fry, but it's also the Mike Selenis. It's the guys who are the assistant position coaches. The Alan Clark, the assistant defensive line coach, just got a job with Texas as the outside linebackers coach. I'm a little salty about that, Tony. You know why I'm a little salty about that. Went around, because he's someone who's been highly, highly regarded. I went around at media day at the national championship game, asking all these players about Alan Clark, talked to him for like 5-10 minutes, great interview, setting up for this wonderful feature story, and then he leaves. So that's all right. But incredibly highly, highly thought of guy. This is not, Mike Seleni getting a job at going from an assistant position coach to getting his own offensive line room at UNLV under Dan Mullen. Like, that's a great jump. That's a fantastic jump for him. For Alan Clark to go and get a position coaching job at literally Texas, like, he's going to be back. He and Hero Canoe will be back in the Horseshoe on August 30th. That's incredible. That's an enormous jump for him. That's what happens when you win the national championship. Everyone goes, well, their defensive line was pretty good against us in the Cotton Bowl. Why don't we go get one of their guys? Like, you can't get Larry Johnson, but you could probably get Coach Clark. And so there you do. And
can we get Jack Sawyer? No, but you can get somebody who coached him.
No, he's not available. No, sadly for Texas, he's not available. He's available for the Texans, not for Texas. So we'll see. We'll see if Houston picks him up. But yeah, this is one of the things where I think everyone's looking at this and going, oh no. And it's like, no, this is exactly what happens. Your seniors leave because they all came back, and then they leave. Frankly, Ohio State's fortunate that they didn't lose more underclassmen. They have some very talented guys who are not draft eligible yet. And someone like Sonny Styles coming back, Davis Igbinosun coming back. Like, that's great. Like, this is about as well as you could hope that the postseason kind of portion of this went after that national championship, where you knew you were going to lose some assistants. You knew you were probably losing Chip Kelly, because there was a question about that. Let's punch this one up right now from Geiger Lee. Do you think that Chip and Ryan knew it was likely one and done with the intent to groom Hartline for this?
Well, and I don't know, can you hear me? Is my mic on?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. I'll just take you behind the scenes a little bit, Tom, before we move on to this question. So I'm in my socks and I'm rubbing, just moving my feet on the carpet, and then I touch my mic and I shock myself. So I'm building up static throughout the entire show. And then I just accidentally touched the mic and I go muted. So I apologize if this happens throughout the show, but I'm not wearing shoes while I do this. I refuse. Anyway, Ryan Day was on the Joel Klatt show a few days ago while the Chip Kelly news was breaking, and he pretty much said like they knew this was a 1-year thing. And so he said even before they knew that he knew Chip Kelly was gone after the national championship game. So he obviously knew before then as well. So this sure seems like a 1-year deal. And if everybody knows it's a 1-year deal, then yeah, like Brian Hartline is soaking all of this in and taking Brian Hartline talked about it. I don't even remember when, but at some point last year, talking about the opportunity to learn from Chip Kelly, the opportunity to learn from Ryan Day. Yeah, he's going to be locked in. And, at some point, there's probably a point during the season, and probably not too far into the season, where he is nothing that he's hearing from Chip Kelly in terms of the play calling or Ryan Day suggestions are out of line with what he would do, or like catching him off guard. Because again, they're all part of the coordination of the game plan through the week. And as Ryan Day said many times, the play calling happens all by itself. Like it's predetermined basically on down and distance and situations. So that's kind of the easiest part of the whole plan. It's the coordination and what plays when should we be working on and things like that. So it's kind of a paint by numbers. He really dumbs it down. Like, play calling, anybody could do it, except there are times he's not ready to allow anybody to do it. So it's like he's kind of talking out of both sides of his mouth a little bit. But this one is going to be interesting, and I do think they had a pretty good idea. And the thing is, you go in planning for it to be 1 year, and if it turns into more, great. And if it doesn't, then you prepare for the following year. And they're always preparing for that next step. And I have to believe that they did that here with Brian Hartline.
Yeah, and with Chip Kelly, you knew last year, I mean, for him to not have been the first guy that Ryan Day hired last offseason, like the writing that was on the wall there, if you didn't know for sure, was probably would have preferred to get an NFL OC job last offseason. And then the NFL hiring cycle kind of went past. He had hired Bill O'Brien. Then when Bill O'Brien leaves for Boston College, well, then it's sort of Chip Kelly's standing there and going, well, now that that's not an option, this is an option. And didn't this work out great? So, it was always kind of clear that Chip Kelly was kind of not that interested in a lot of the nonsense that goes along with being a college coach these days. And so, yeah, when you get a $6 million offer, yeah, you go ahead, even if it's from a guy with a weird haircut in a minivan, like, yeah, you run, don't walk to cash that $6 million check. So that was, that's an easy one for him.
Brian Neff. Sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
Brian Neff talking about how is this going to hurt recruiting at wide receiver. I do want to see if I can quickly bring up this quote from Chris Henry Jr., the number 1 receiver in the 2026 class. This comes from Hayes Fawcett. This is Chris Henry on Brian Hartline being promoted to OC. I love this move. Coach Hartline knows how to develop receivers better than anyone. And now with him as OC, I know he's going to put us receivers in the best position to dominate for sure. So based on one receiver's opinion, I don't think it's going to hurt. And this is, he's still going to be there. And him and Devin Jordan, I assume Devin Jordan will be back, who's been his right-hand man for years now. Those two guys have a very good connection, both with recruits and with their players. So I don't see that changing. It is going to be interesting to see where he's going to be. Is he upstairs? Is he downstairs? That's all going to have to be worked out. How comfortable is he being down on the sideline, calling plays? Chip Kelly preferred calling plays from the sideline, but this past year he was upstairs. Ryan Day, being the head coach, has to be on the sideline. Kevin Wilson would call him from upstairs. And so You know Hartline wants to be down there with his players, coaching and all of those things. Devin Jordan's fully qualified to do that if Hartline needs to go upstairs. So I think that's all interesting as well to see how this works out.
Yeah, Battling Buckeye says Hartline needs to be up in the box. No, that would certainly be my assumption, because that has been where Ohio State's offensive coordinator has been for the last, basically ever, except for the year that Ryan Day was really just calling plays exclusively by himself and didn't have, Kevin Wilson as his offensive coordinator there to sort of help him with that stuff. I think you need to have a pair of veteran eyes up in that box. And I think you need to have probably the guy who's calling the plays, either the guy who's calling the plays or the guy who's vetoing the call plays or, approving the call plays. One of them needs to be upstairs, because it's just the mechanics of the limited amount of time you have and being on the headset and getting the play in. You're talking, there's only so many seconds. We've talked to the coaches about this before. There's only so much time you have to figure out, okay, as the previous play ends, you sort of know what you probably are going to do. Hey, this play worked and we're going to do this, or hey, this play didn't work and we're going to do that. But then, hey, sometimes it's going to be like, well, it's sort of in between. What do we do then? And you've got to be able to look, you got to be able to spot the ball. You got to be able to know, hey, look, this is how they're defending this. And I can tell you, having been on the field for pretty much every Ohio State game for the last, 5 years or whatever, it's hard to look and see the whole picture. There's a reason that they don't show the entire game, that the sideline shot or end zone shot is not the popular angle to watch the game from. The TV angle is basically the press box angle. There's a reason for that. It's because that's where it's easiest to see the whole picture and diagnose what's going on the field and what the other team is doing with what you're calling and all that kind of stuff. So I think they've got to have him upstairs. And you're right. Devin Jordan this is another one of these names that we don't talk about enough probably, but Devin Jordan's been around the program for 4 years now, maybe 5. I mean, he's been around for a while, and just like Hartline, former Ohio State wide receiver, relatively young, very, very popular with players, very, very talented coach, someone who I think is he can be on the headsets on the sideline and he can be talking to Brian Hartline on the sideline and all that kind of stuff. If Brian Hartline has stuff he wants to get down to the guys, you've got other talented staffers there who can do that stuff. If you want to call plays, like, I know you want to be on the sideline, but if you want to call plays, like, the office for that is upstairs. You'll have to take the elevator up, hang a left, go down about 3 doors, and you'll see a headset with your name on it.
Yeah. Do you want to do that, or do you want to stay on the sideline? Because I don't know that it can necessarily be both. So we've got some starred questions in there. Do we want to touch on?
Yeah, let's. Well, here's one. This is not the most complicated one from Adam Baker. Kevin Wilson.
Well, and the thing is, like, this is something I was talking about, I think on the Mark Rogers show today. Like, what's he doing? What position are you talking about? Because the last position he had at Ohio State, position coach, he was the offensive coordinator and the tight ends coach. There's no opening at tight end. There's no opening right now on the offensive line, which he's done before. Doesn't appear to be a quarterback opening. There is technically a coaching spot for him, but it was previously a defensive spot. So, like, what is he doing? And if Hartline is the OC, like, I think, sure, if he wants to come here and be an assistant to the assistant, like that sort of thing, you can definitely use Kevin Wilson. His son Toby is like his son Toby is graduating and I assume moving on. So like that reason to be here for another year is not necessarily here any longer. I think he'd be a fantastic addition, but there's no room for him as an assistant coach.
Right. And he could theoretically be at Ohio State in some kind of an analyst role or something like that. And someone brought this up on our board. He, I think, had another couple of years or year or two left on his contract at Tulsa when he was let go. So you could have, offset language or something. Tulsa's a private school, so they're not subject to FOIA. So I don't know the specific terms of the contract, but he's presumably got a buyout, and there may be some offset language in there where if Ohio State pays him just a little bit, he still gets the money from his Tulsa contract. Again, that's all sort of speculative because Tulsa is a private school and not subject to for the Freedom of Information Act, where they have to turn over contracts to the media and anyone else who requests it. So either way, that's more than you need to know, but it's just sort of some context here. But yeah, you could theoretically bring him in. It would not surprise me if they brought him in some kind of a role. But now at this point, like, all the main assistant coach roles are filled. So, they have brought in plenty of those former veteran kind of coach guys over the years, Todd Fitch and Paul Rhodes, for example. I mean, those are just some of the guys we've seen. Tim Drevno, exactly.
Like,
yeah, it's lots of those veteran guys.
Like, if Kevin Wilson wants to be Mike Soleni or Tim Drevno, like, fantastic. Help with the offensive line. He's got obviously a wealth of knowledge, one of the great play callers in college football history, honestly. So there's plenty of things that he could do. It's just being one of the 10 quote unquote countables isn't really one of them based on everything that we're hearing. And really, like, he's a fantastic brain. I don't think you'd call him the greatest recruiter. So if you can get him and he's not one of your 10 countables on the recruiting trail, I mean, that's a home run.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. And, you get as many smart guys, smart football brains in that room as you can, and you bounce stuff off of each other. And, I think a lot of this, it goes to, I come back to this one in a minute, but no, let's not come back to it because I'm going to lose it later otherwise. So, all right, let's hit on this one from Jeff Johnson. Internal promotions have been hit or miss for Day. Obviously, we all hope for another hit. Here's the thing. Hiring, period, full stop hiring has been hit or miss for literally every coach in the history of college football. I mean, Urban Meyer had some of the great hits of all time. Urban Meyer had some of the great misses of all time. Nick Saban has had some clunkers. Nick Saban has plenty of coaches where he's brought them in. And he did the Nick Saban School for Wayward Boys thing for quite a while, where it's like, basically shopping the college football scratch and dent sale, where it's like, oh, this guy disgraced himself in some terrible way. Well, he's going to just go have a corner office here, a kind of a little bit closet office here somewhere in the Alabama football facility, and he's just going to be grinding film for 90 hours a week for 12 months, and then he'll maybe get a slightly nicer job, and then 3 years from now he'll be the head coach of some other, SEC school because he's come off the Nick Saban tree. There's lots of opportunities for that kind of stuff, but you can have great assistant hires, you can have terrible assistant hires. There's really almost no way to know for sure. It's a little like NFL teams drafting quarterbacks. It's like, yeah, you're going to figure it out pretty quickly whether you have something or not, but you're not going to necessarily know beforehand, because these are not necessarily guys who have had to do this exact job in this exact place, in this exact college football reality, because no one's had to do that in this exact college football reality. There's just so much stuff that's changing that there's a lot of uncertainty with all of these hires. So honestly, the biggest, most important thing for a coach is not gets all his hires exactly correct. That's not reality. Like, no one gets all their hires exactly correct. It's a matter of figures out he has the wrong guy in the job and then makes a move to fix that, rather than, well, I hired the guy and he has a 2-year contract, so he's got to coach the second year. Like, if this is not working, pull the ripcord and we'll put someone else in there. That's kind of maybe even the more important head coaching trait, rather than just gets all his hires right, because no one gets all his hires right.
Well, Tom, let me ask you this. Like, what internal hires are we talking about that haven't gone well for him? Because really, Keenan Bailey and Brian Hartline as receivers coach to OC. Because Kerry Combs was not internal. He was an NFL coach that Ryan Day hired. So if you want to, he's no longer internal. James Laurinaitis seems to be doing well. So it almost feels like Kerry Combs, that hire maybe clouds everything, because it feels like he's a known quantity in terms of he was at Ohio State forever, but he was gone for 2 years. So that's not really an internal hire. So I don't know, like Parker Fleming was here when with Urban, but Parker Fleming did. I don't know that the issue is as much with Parker Fleming as it was just the having a coordinator is what most people were angry about. Like that could have been anybody. And granted, he did not do a great job. But if the biggest complaint here, the biggest proof is Parker Fleming as a special teams coordinator, I'll show you Keenan Bailey and the tight ends, what they've done. I'll show you James Laurinaitis and what the linebackers did, and you can take Parker Fleming.
Yeah, and I think that's fair. I do think yeah, I mean, was was Kerry Combs on the 2019 staff? Was he on?
Ye- ye-
So it's Kerry. Yes, he was an internal hire. Yeah, so it's Kerry Combs and Parker Fleming, and that's, yeah, as far as hit rates go, that's a pretty good hit rate if those are your two big misses. And as you said, like there have been a bunch of really good internal hires. Brian Hartline coming on, and that was the summer of Urban, but that was a substantial upgrade. And Keenan Bailey has done a fantastic job. We just did a show on the Ohio State tight end room for the Buckeyes Tomorrow Morning feed. This is about as talented as the Buckeye tight end room has been in ever. And so this is a coach who I think deserves as much credit or as much benefit of the doubt in terms of hires as anyone, because there have been several of these that I kind of went like, this is either really going to work or it's really not going to work, and it's turned out to work. So I think Ryan Day has a decent sense for what he's looking for, and I think there are probably a lot of these coaches on the Ohio State staff that are going to end up at some point, their jobs are going to be open because they are taking a head coaching job at Cincinnati or Louisville or Pittsburgh or wherever else. Guys who are probably going to be doing bigger things in the college football world.
Kerry Combs was at Tennessee in 2019. That was Halfley and Matt Barnes. So.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, then there you go. So he's not technically an internal candidate, even though he kind of was. So all right. So there you go. And here's one from area Frenchman. We met down in Atlanta. Good to see you in the comments again. Youth movement in the coaching room on offense. Day is growing the first branches of his coaching tree. Will he go geriatric / experienced on defense?
Based on everything we've kind of heard, yes. Not necessarily because they're going so young, but yeah, I think that's kind of the expectation, is it's going to be a little bit older on defense than they've been on offense. And one of the names out there is Joe Cullen, who is the Kansas City Chiefs defensive line coach, and I don't have his Wikipedia page up right now, but he's an older gentleman, probably in his early 60s, and I can bring that up real quick.
I think Cullen's in his mid to late 50s, I think.
Born 67. Yeah, okay. So there you go, 57. And as I tell my wife, 57 for men is like low 50s, and like 53 for women is late 50s, and it just these numbers that really anger her that I just throw in there from now.
I was going to ask about the handprint on the side of your face, but now I don't feel like I need to ask.
So yeah, 53. That's mid 40s for a guy. 57. That's early 50s for a man, as we know. But an experienced guy, and I don't know if it's necessarily going to be him. If it is, it kind of explains why nothing's been moving just yet, because he's been busy. But I do expect a more experienced guy on defense, because if Matt Guerrieri's getting that job as the play caller, he's 35. James Laurinaitis is a youngish guy. Tim Moulton is early 50s or so as well, maybe mid 50s at this point. So he's got some experience. And of course, we all know about Larry Johnson. And so it's a pretty decent mix. And I guess the next guy is just going to be probably about the same range as Jim Knowles in terms of experience.
Yeah, I mean, that's about right. And you don't need to bring in just a bunch of Matlock viewers to have a good coaching staff, but you need some veteran folks. I mean, I go back to like Greg Madison coming in. That was the year Greg Madison came in, the year of Halfley, or was that the year of, I think that was the year of Halfley, right? Greg Madison. Yep. Yeah. So you bring in this sort of veteran guy who's sort of seen it, and you've got a front end guy and a back end guy. And that's kind of how that sort of tandem will work a lot. So yeah, I think that's a decent possibility, and that's something that we got to give credit to Mark Givler, who's been talking about that a bunch on the huddle board presented by Jeff Ruby Steakhouse at BuckeyeHuddle.com. That is a great place to get inside information and more details on a lot of the stuff that we're talking about here. We end up talking about a lot more stuff and are a little more willing to be a little more speculative there than we are probably here. So if you have not signed up already, you can do that at BuckeyeHuddle.com, and There is still some national championship confetti left, believe it or not, despite everyone's best efforts. We turns out we get a lot of it. So we do have a little more of that if you want us to send that out to you. The way to do that is become a member at BuckeyeHuddle.com and then go on the huddle board, and we'll send it out to you there.
It'd be a shame if that ended up in the burn barrel. You wouldn't want to see something happen this, would you?
Here's one from Thomas Kirkpatrick. A lot of pressure on Hartline. First game in 2025 against Texas. Gut sense Hartline might be a dynamic play caller, aggressive, will not flinch 1 inch. Generally, my assumption is if you're a defensive coach as a head coach, you are going to be super conservative and you're going to be Pat Narduzzi kicking 18-yard field goals all the time. If you're a quarterback like Ryan Day, you're probably going to be a little bit pass happy. If you're a wide receivers coach like Brian Hartline, you're probably going to be pretty aggressive and pass happy. That's why you sometimes have the run game guy, the offensive line guy who's in there to kind of go like, hey, don't forget, we can run the ball too. But my guys like to run block too. That's actually more fun for them. And, the running backs like to run the ball. And that's where you have that kind of balance and you have those different voices, those sort of diverse voices. But yeah, I do get the sense that Brian Hartline will probably be fairly aggressive. But, in terms of the pressure on him in the first game against Texas, they're going to spend they're already working on the Texas game plan, I'm sure, to a certain degree. So this is not going to be something that Brian Hartline has to, that Tuesday draw up himself. I got to burn the midnight oil and put this Texas game plan together.
Oh, crap.
There are a whole lot of people working on that already.
Yeah, and in terms of the dynamic play caller, you can be as dynamic as your quarterback allows. And you've got a redshirt freshman in Julian Sayin and a redshirt sophomore in Lincoln Keenolson, and a true freshman in Tavian St. Clair. So Brian Hartline could be like, I want to just bombs away in terms of attacking on the ground, attacking through the air. And I want to boom, 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 and go. But you can only go as fast as your quarterback. And we also know they're not going to go fast anyway because of what they've done this past year and going slow and boom, looking very fast at the end of the season because of it. They were the fastest team out there because they went slow throughout the course of the season. And since it worked, I don't think they're going to change anything in terms of taking it easy and not necessarily doing too much of the no huddle stuff, which will also help those young quarterbacks.
Yeah. And, if you're going to do that, you're going to do that against Texas and not against Grambling or Ohio or one of the other teams later in the schedule. But, we'll see. I think they're going to be probably a little bit conservative coming out of the chute against Texas, just with you've got a lot of new faces. You got a new, you're going to look at where's your talent. And then, they may have to score more on offense this year. So maybe they will be more aggressive because the defense, you lost just about everyone off the defense, at least among the starters. So you're going to have to do, you've got some real good pieces to build around, but there's a lot of guys who we've seen, but we haven't seen start. And then behind them, it's a lot of question marks. So, there's a lot of time to sort through all that. Here's one from Hummus Hero. I think Ohio State owes Brian Hartline the chance to try. Let's be real. Without his wide receivers, they don't have the national championship.
Well, that's hard to argue. Just based on the results of the games, Mecca Ibuka ends up as the all-time leading receiver at Ohio State. Jeremiah Smith doing what he did, stealing the game with that catch on 3rd and 11. And, you can go before those two guys. Brian Hartline certainly did more than just those two guys over the years. So, and again, you're either going to lose him or why lose him before knowing what you've got completely in him? And sure, if Ryan Day did let him go without giving him the opportunity to call plays, then that tells me all of the stuff that Ryan Day learned about him throughout the course of this was that he's not ready to call plays, and that the input that he got from Hartline was like, well, it's just not where I need it to be. And so, yeah, if you do feel like you have to leave, go ahead. It's just, I know that it's not going to work out here for you as a play caller. And so that Ryan Day is not just going to hand these things over and be like, gosh, I hope this works. He knows in his heart of hearts that it is going to work. Now, coaches, are they always right, Tom?
Is there any coach? Are there coaches around here? No. Okay. No, they're not always right.
Only softball coaches are always right.
Yes, I've heard that somewhere.
Yes, I've heard it from you. You're going to give him an opportunity and see how it goes. And the thing is, if things don't go well, he's pulled play calling duties from people before, and he can do it again. And if they have to do that, then he can take over.
Ethan Maxfield wants to know, is Carlos Loughlin the run game coordinator as well as running backs, or just running backs coach? I don't think he had that job title last
He did
year,
not.
and they have not announced job titles. Like, none of this is official yet. This is all, reputable sources are saying, and people we trust to have correct information and not just be throwing stuff against the wall. So, that's none of this is official. And a lot of these job titles are, what's a nice way to say nonsense just to get paid? What's a good way to say that's not, insulting? There's a lot of title creep, title inflation that comes with this. And, is Carlos Loughlin going to be in the room as they're having these conversations? Absolutely. Is Carlos Loughlin going to have input in this? Absolutely. Is Carlos Loughlin going to be the run game coordinator? I don't know. My guess would be it'll be the new offensive line coach who also has play calling. But then, so you give Carlos Loughlin the associate head coach / running backs coach thing. And then that's a new job responsibility, Tony. What does it do? And then he gets more money because he had a fantastic first year at Ohio State and probably deserves a nice salary bump after the first year he had with a pair of 1,000-yard running backs and 10 touchdowns each, and also incredible blocking and also incredible pass receiving. Like, Carlos Loughlin is about an A+ hire, I think, for the Buckeyes. So I'd look for him to get some kind of a probably title bump to go with a nice salary bump this year as well.
Yeah, and just real quick, Justin Fry was the run game coordinator, and I think before him it was Tony Alford. So there's been a history of both, but I would expect Bowen as well.
Glasswing Butterfly says, so glad to hear from you guys. We're beginning to think you'd run off to the NFL. Allow me to assure you that will not be where you find me in the NFL. No, thank you. Much more likely here. Tony Troy V says, Tom got traded to the Charlestown Chiefs and we're covering a few of the Hanson grandkids. That's more like it. Tony, you can't see my hands right now, but I am literally putting on the foil. Bexley says, I'll keep saying it. Hartline is being groomed to be head coach. Day has a title, hopefully another. RJ will graduate in a couple of years. That's the marker. I mean, they do have younger kids as well.
Yeah. And this is not like the 1600s where it just matters what your son does, so there are daughters in play here as well. But the thing about Ryan Day being given this, earning the Ohio State coaching job, not being a head coach before, like, I think he takes some of that and is like, I can give this to other people as well, in terms of like Brian Hartline. You've not called plays here. You've not called plays anywhere before. We'll do it here. It's like he knows, like, just because you haven't done it somewhere else doesn't mean you can't do it here. And it may not go go great the entire time, but when has it gone great for established people the entire time as well? Like, there are always going to be growing pains or troubles. Like, when you're young and when you're inexperienced, it's growing pains. When you're old and grizzled, it's just, it is what it is. Like, this is just normal,
just regular pains.
Just pains. Yeah, just regular pains. So, there's an opportunity for Ryan Day to kind of pay it forward and give guys an opportunity, knowing like you're hiring guys with the idea of, I hope I'm doing a good enough job that I can make these internal hires. Like, I hope this graduate assistant that I'm picking and that is being picked by my staff that I have picked is good enough that they can coach here when I lose somebody.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. And this is an opportunity to, like you said, to pay it forward and to, there was someone who, when Ryan Day was young and, young and didn't know what he was doing yet, like, he got a chance, and Chip Kelly was one of the people that helped him get to that spot. And now Ryan Day should have paid that back with Chip Kelly. You don't normally get to pay it back in the coaching. It's more of a pay it forward thing. But, coaching trees are something that guys are really proud of. That is a thing that head coaches are really proud of. And they're happy to, they're happy for the guys that were on their staffs who they helped get bigger jobs. This is the time when you want that to happen. You don't want that to happen because everyone got fired and then someone had to go get a job somewhere else. You want it to be successful. Everyone, walks off happily into the sunset as the credits roll. Like, that's what's going on right now with the Ohio State football team. And that's the good way for this to happen. Super chat from Murphy Serafino. I know we already have CJ Donaldson from West Virginia. That would be the transfer running back. I think they will try to add another in the spring. It's a pretty crowded running back room at this point, and it's a young running back room. But James Peoples as a second-year guy, you got C.J. Donaldson, who's a transfer from West Virginia. Those are two, kind of your two veteran guys. And then your third back is take your pick of the three talented freshmen, Isaiah West and Bo Jackson and Turbo Rogers. To me, that's a reasonably full room, unless they feel that there's a role that they need to fill, or there's, a too good to pass up kind of opportunity. If there's, whatever this year's version of Quinshon Judkins is, like, sure, by all means, go get him. But I don't know that they're going to be like out desperately proactively looking to add someone.
Yeah, and like, what do they see in the spring? If they do go looking in the spring, then that maybe tells you like the freshmen are a little bit behind. But I did speak with Carlos Lachlan prior to the Rose Bowl, and here's his quote on I was asking him about C.J. Donaldson, and here's his quote: "My job is to go get the best backs and put them in my room. Coach Day says all the time, you're the head coach of your position, so I'm always going to go out and get the best talent. Competition breeds success. That's my mindset." So if there's somebody out there that he thinks could add something and is interested, then sure. But I'm not necessarily expecting it. But also that is kind of assuming that the freshmen are going to look okay, because we know Carlos Lachlan likes all three of these guys. So there's that whole aspect of they want to give those guys an opportunity. And Antone Abram mentioned Sam Williams-Dixon is still on the roster. He hit the portal. So like, is he going to come back? Maybe. I don't know, because he's still not ended up anywhere. We've talked about that recently, Tom, where he's still kind of floating out there. So we'll see what happens. It wouldn't be the first guy that comes back. Bryson Rogers has done it before, a receiver. He's come back. So there is that possibility. But again, I don't know that he has necessarily done that just yet. But there has been a lot of news of late. So maybe it's gone under the radar, Tom.
Yeah, I checked on him just a couple days ago, and he was still in the portal. But yeah, you never say never at this point. And I think he was with the team through the playoffs. So someone who's obviously still in the good graces of the program. So yeah, we'll see where that whole story ends up. McChicken says you guys should do an evening live show, say 7 to 7:15 Monday to Friday. That presumes that we have consistent, reliable schedules and nothing else going on in our lives. And let me tell you, I'm generally at an ice rink at least 2 to 3 of those days and times. We're also going to end up wrapping up at some point quasi soon, because I also have to be at an ice rink at 5:45 in the morning. That's about 40 minutes from my house. So anyway, hockey, it's great. Here's from Robert Howard. Here's the thing. Ryan Day just brought himself some leeway. He could not afford to make a move like this last year. That's an interesting perspective on the Brian Hartline thing. Because for sure, like, Ryan Day has, I don't know how long the grace period is. The old theory was like, you don't get to complain about anything for 5 years. Realistically, people are already complaining about stuff. So we're not in the good old days of 10 years ago, but I think Ryan Day's job security, he pushed the old reset button on that for probably 99.999% of the fan base, and should be good to go for a few years. So yeah, you do have a little bit of a leeway to have, hey, it didn't start out 100% great. That's okay. The other piece of it is now we've seen, hey, you can have a loss or two in the regular season, and that's okay. If you make the playoff, as long as you get in, you got a chance to win it all. And if you have Ohio State level talent, you're not going to win it all every year that you get in, but you have a chance to win it all every year you get in. And that's, you can make some sacrifices during the regular season if it pays off long term. We saw that this year with, as you talked about earlier, with the tempo and, some of the play calling and some of the staff tweaks and schematic tweaks that they made during the course of the season. You can lose a game or two in the regular season and still be covered in confetti at the end of the year.
Well, and the thing is, if it's about keeping Ohio State fans happy or angry, imagine how angry they'd be if Ryan Day let Brian Hartline walk without like giving him an opportunity to call plays. So this is the lesser of two evils, if you will, or the better of two goods.
John Johnson says all of this will sort itself out in due time. I'm just sitting here still stoked we got a natty. You know what? if you're an Ohio State fan, that's a pretty good mentality to have. That's a good approach. This is something that you get. Ohio State fans are spoiled, and they get this like once a decade, this century. That means if it doesn't happen for the 9 years, that's okay. Like lots of different teams win the national championship. That's how it works. It's not the same team every year, and that's why the idea that any season where you don't win the national championship is a failure. Like that means that Ohio State, probably the most consistently successful program of the last 50 years, has had 47 of those years as failures. Like that's probably not a realistic bar.
Couldn't be me.
I'm going to pop this in real quick from Matt Reynolds just because it's random, but I'm going to ask. He wants to ask, does Barry Sanders have a son? He played for Stanford a few years back, right? And was not Barry Sanders Jr. was not Barry Sanders Sr.
Did he do better than Emmett Smith's son?
But I think they were right around the same time.
Mm-hmm.
Where did Emmett Smith's son go? I remember Emmett Smith being at like Ohio State camp or a game or something.
E.J. Smith. Did he end up in Florida? I can't remember.
But yeah, they did not match their father's production, which, when your father is one of the greatest of all time, that's not necessarily a fair bar to that, did not live up to your NFL Hall of Fame father. That's a bar that's like the national championship or failure bar. Not everyone is Marvin Harrison Jr.
By the way, it was Emmett Smith Jr. that went to Stanford, and then went to Stanford for 4 years, and then ended up at Texas A&M. Rushed for 764 yards in his career over the course of 5 seasons. I don't see Barry Sanders Jr. anywhere listed. He may have been an FCS guy.
Was he? I swear I remember him at Stanford, but maybe not. Murphy.
No, that was Andrew Luck. That was Andrew Luck.
Yeah. You know what Emmett Smith's kid's problem was? Moose Johnson didn't have a kid. That's the problem. Larry Allen didn't have a kid.
Barry Sanders signed with Stanford 2012. He's a class of 2012.
Okay, in my head that was like 6 years ago. Okay, well, I'm going through some stuff now. Murphy Serafino is about to be going through some stuff as well because he asks, is the Texas opener going to be a big noon kickoff? Please God, no. Michael Scott meme. Yeah, so we don't have that official, but it's an Ohio State home game, so it's going to fall under the Big Ten TV contract. It's going to be probably one of the most anticipated, if not the most anticipated games of the season. Fox is going to have the first pick, probably the second pick, probably the third pick. It's certainly going to be a Fox game. Could Fox theoretically move it to prime time somehow? Theoretically, sure, they could. Is it going to be a big noon game, Tony? I mean,
what about?
I would plan for Bloody Marys at your tailgate that day or mimosas. I think that's probably the most likely outcome right now. But there's wiggle room, but it's going to be a Fox broadcast.
Tom, can I interest you in a Sunday night Labor Day weekend Fox broadcast? Have they already announced what the first?
Yeah,
some of it has been
those. Yeah, and I don't. Sometimes those Sunday night games are terrible. I think that might be one of those things where the city of Columbus and Ohio State would have to approve it. I'm sure they're not interested in doing that as a Friday night or a Thursday night.
They have before, though.
They have before, but not with this caliber of game. Like this caliber of game is usually we'll tell you where we're going to have this, and then you can move yourself. This is like the NFL is like, well, we're playing our games here, and you can put your college football playoff games wherever you want, but our games are here, and those are the ones that ESPN passes on and passes up onto TBS. I would say by far the most likely outcome right now is big noon kickoff on that Saturday, August 30th. But could it get moved? Sure, theoretically it could get moved. Glass wing butterfly. Well, I'll tell you what, we're going to go out of order here. Acu Ninja Gal says, OSU fans are just perfectionists, not spoiled. LOL, I'm only speaking for myself. Glass wing butterfly says, next Natty, I want Confetti certified to have been touched by Coach, certified to have touched Coach Day or one of our players. I don't know if we can. I don't know if we can go out there with like the MLB certification, like the foil or hologram stuff to certify that this landed on this landed on Jack Sawyer's head. Like I don't know if we can do that, but we will certainly try.
Walking around with handfuls of confetti, just like rubbing them on the backs of jerseys, so that way players don't know it and you don't get in trouble. Like, or you just pat somebody on the back. Does that qualify? We'll do what we can. I like this one here from Jacob Robinson.
Yeah, RJ Day, quarterback. Ryan Day's son, Angelo Smith, who's Jeremiah Smith's younger brother, and Jet Harrison, who's Marvin Harrison Jr.'s younger brother, at wide receiver. I mean, they're all going to play FBS football, so it could happen.
Yeah, and certainly those two younger brothers, Angelo Smith and Jet Harrison, already Buckeyes in their minds in terms of watching their older brothers. And we saw Angelo last June at one of the camps, and he was already camping, was a true freshman. And was Jet Harrison there as well? Was he?
Yes, I think so. Yeah. And I remember talking to Marvin Harrison about Jet Harrison, and he was, it was like, you always wonder, like, are they going to be like real conservative and not want to say anything? He was like, no, he was pretty open about like, yeah, he's pretty good. So there you go. Market X, someone asked about Texas being used to, is Texas, do they even know how to play at noon? And Market X says Texas plays their biggest rival at noon every year. They don't play Texas A&M at noon. Oh, yes, that's right. They're not rivals. Just ask literally both teams.
And in fairness, they play at 11. So noon is a little bit different.
That's true. Yes. Sue says, I think Tom just called me a Matlock viewer. And she said, we watch CSI, Tom. Sorry, I got to update my old person references are old.
Plus, now, Tom,
we skipped over Blue Bloods entirely.
Matlock is back. That's you've waited so long to make your references that your dated references are now on point. Congratulations. It has finally paid off for you.
There you go. Just gotta wait for the clock to get all the way around, and then the stop clock is right once again. Here's one from Big John. How soon will Coach Day have a press conference about all the coaching additions? And then probably a more relevant question from Billy Tuesday. Will there be any coach pressers before spring ball? Tony?
Well, hey, happy signing day, everyone. Did we talk to any coaches today? No, there's nothing to talk about. I do think we will have something before spring ball because this allows you talk to the coaches. I would love in past years, we've been able to talk to like some of the incoming transfers. We've been able to talk to some of the incoming freshmen, of which there are only 3 true freshmen in this class that have not already enrolled. So it would be nice to knock out all of that stuff before spring ball starts. Talk to the coaches, talk to the transfers, talk to the incoming freshmen. I don't know that we've been able to talk to the incoming freshmen for a couple of years. It seems like it's been a while since we've done that. Maybe CJ. Did we talk to Kyle McCord's class? Probably, but like that's 4 years ago. That was the class of 2021 or whatever. So it's been a while. But I do expect something because there has been so much, and we will all on the beat be bothering Jerry Emig, the SID, to start getting some of those things knocked out because it's we all have jobs to do. So like, let us do that. And Ryan Day wants the Ohio State story to be told, and we're all out here trying to tell it. So give us some more material, I guess is what I'd say.
Well, and one thing that I've found talking to a bunch of the younger guys at media days for the national championship game, because I think we've talked about this on the show at points in the past, but when we have like national championship media days, we'll send one person around to go talk to people about the upcoming game, but that stuff is good for like 2 days. And we know, hey, there's like multiple months coming up after that where we're going to have, you guys are going to continue to want to hear about Ohio State football and Ohio State football players. So what a couple of us will do is go talk to, we'll generally divide it up, offense and defense. Go talk to a bunch of the young guys. Go talk to the guys who were true freshmen this year or who were redshirt freshmen. They're just starting to play a little more, who we don't normally get to talk to, and start to talk to them about the upcoming season and like, what are you working on for spring ball and all that kind of stuff. And so, we'll have some of that stuff. We get a chance to do some of that stuff. But yeah, if we can get the true freshmen at some point and the new coaches and all that kind of stuff, like that's all great. And that's, even more relevant now because of the NIL piece. Like these guys are all, as we talk to them, guys who we don't normally get to talk to.
Mm-hmm.
They're all incredibly articulate. They're all, no one is going out and guaranteeing victory in a, oh, we're going to beat Texas by 57 points. Like, no one's doing that crap. Like, they're all smart. They all know what to do. So, that shouldn't be a concern. So I would guess we'll get some folks, because as you said, like, everyone's aware that there is an insatiable hunger for Ohio State football news and information, and every time Ohio State football is in the news for positive things, like, that's a good thing for the program. So, it's sort of in everyone's best interest. So the answer is yes, eventually, probably at some point, we hope.
Yeah, and a lot of the stories that we've talked to coaches and young guys about have been running this week. I wrote about Mylan Graham on Sunday after talking with him, and Brian Hartline and Carnell Tate. Wrote about Julian Sayin on Monday, talked with Julian Sayin, talked with Chip Kelly. Wrote about Jarquez Carter yesterday. You talked with Larry Johnson about him. Dropped the comparison to Mike Hall Jr. So, like, that's an interesting one. Didn't have time to write about Jermaine Matthews today. That'll probably be tomorrow. But a lot of the young guys. So that'll be going on. I've got everything scheduled out. Time you should see my February calendar. It's loaded and it's a mess.
Yes, it's that's how this time of year typically is. Yes, and get a book to do too. There's a bunch of stuff we got to do. Glasswing Butterfly says, "Are we going to have a spring game or chicken out like Nebraska?" That's still TBD. Ohio State is going to be starting spring practice after spring break, so that's 2 weeks later than normal. So it's like the week of March 15th or something like that. But in terms of, like, when that spring ball is going to end and what the format of that is going to be, that's still up in the air. I think they're still trying to figure that out. So we will see. If you have not seen that or heard that, Nebraska is not having a spring game, like a traditional spring game this year, because they're concerned about people seeing their recruits on TV and poaching them, and because the transfer portal is still open till April 25th or something like that. So that's the story there. Doug Shepard sends a super chat and he says, "Just because you guys are the best, we appreciate it. Strong agree, and we appreciate it." Geiger Lee, who is apparently new here, says, "I'm looking forward to Buckeye Nation not freaking out if we lose to Texas, since the playoff format worked for us." Yeah, That's exactly what years of following Ohio State fans on social media has taught me will definitely happen.
What I'm reading there is Geiger Lee reading between the lines. I am looking forward to Ohio State losing to Texas. That's what I see there. So I don't know, Tom. Time to ban this guy. I know he's been around forever, but we can't have this talk on this channel. Like, you're going to make everybody angry. Jeff Johnson, why not just have the spring game after the transfer portal closes? Some people are talking about that. Ohio State wouldn't necessarily have to do that because they take a week off for spring break. So basically, by starting in the when they are like the second to last week in March, they're basically just missing 2 practices. So they would just have to find some area to get those in. And last year, their spring game was like the 12th. This year would be like the 13th if they kept that same schedule. So even if they just pushed it back a week to the 19th, that would still get the spring game in before the portal closes, which would allow players to be told, "Hey, we don't have room for you," or we're not going to be paying for you to be here. You can stay, but we've got to use your NIL elsewhere.
Yeah, I feel like the days of the 85 count is probably over, because it's probably going to be a 105 count. Is that even official yet? I feel like, I don't think it's official yet, but yeah, it's not numbers, but you're probably having, the conversation now is like, don't ask for more NIL, because that's not currently in the offing. That's not in the budget right now. And that's probably what those conversations are more like. But I think at this point, if you have Ohio State, you probably know where you are kind of with things. Like, these guys aren't dumb. If you're repping 4th at your position and you're repping behind 3 guys who are younger than you, like, you can probably read those tea leaves, and you don't need someone to reach out to you to tell you where that is. So that's all kind of related to these conversations. Completely unrelated to these conversations. Let's talk. We had a question I forgot from earlier that was, I thought, a good one on a couple of young offensive linemen. The Armstrong twins, Matt Reynolds says, well, how much of an impact will the Armstrong twins have? I think they're going to be great. One thing, I think I've mentioned this before, but I always feel bad lumping them in as the Armstrong twins. It's Devontae and DeAndre Armstrong. It's like they are two separate human beings. They're not conjoined twins. They're just regular old twins. And it's like every time I feel bad about lumping them together, I look and they're doing something that's together, like they lost their black stripes on the same day. I looked after the national championship game and they were doing an interview, the two of them together. There was only one place on the field that two people were talking to the same TV crew, and it was them. And it's like, well, I don't want to just constantly lump you guys in together, but also like you're really not helping here.
No, you say they're not conjoined, but they play literally next to each other, so they could be if they needed to be. But yeah, it's funny. Like I've talked to them before. We talked to them before, like high school games, and you try to just pull them apart a little bit, and they end up like just getting like they seem to really like each other, which is great, I guess. But you almost like you feel bad like. We don't have to just talk to both of you. I can talk to one and then I can talk to the other. And it's like, no, we're good. We're good. And it's like, this has clearly been their entire life, but Deontay, offensive tackle, Devontae, a guard, they've got to learn some more and more, I think, pass blocking coming from a run offense. That's part of the process of getting better. And again, you really can't expect anything from you shouldn't expect anything from an offensive lineman until like, year 3 is when you can be like, okay, let's start. Why aren't you a backup at this point? Year 2, you're still working on it. Like Justin Fry used to put it in a way that was really good. And I can't remember exactly what it was, but it was like your first year, you're learning how to play offensive line. Your second year, you're learning how to play your position. And then your third year is you're playing your position, something to that effect, where it is a 3-year process before people are like, okay, we're ready for you. And we all saw Carson Hinsman thrust into action as a redshirt freshman, but then we also saw how little he played through the first half of the season this past year as a third-year guy. So, like, there is a developmental period that is very, very necessary for the offensive line. So even if you're not seeing something from the Armstrongs this year, don't worry. And I see Matt's next question is Luke Montgomery coming back this year? Yes, he is definitely back. Unless something horrible happens after spring ball and he hits the portal. But yeah, no, he's definitely back and he's going to be vying for a starting job.
Yeah, for sure. He's going to have some kind of a role on this team and some kind of a significant role on this team because he was dynamite down the stretch. Like that was, I keep going back to the press conference before the Tennessee game where it was the Ryan Day Wednesday press conference, I think. And we're sitting in the team room and Ryan Day is talking about we're going to play all 3 guys at guard and we'll just sort of see how it goes. And I turned to you like, what? That's the plan? And it ended up working out great. It was like the most Leroy Jenkins plan. And it was like, but in this case, it worked out great. And it's like, oh, Leroy Jenkins means things go great. And it's incredible that it did. And now you've got, you have like depth on the interior of the offensive line and you've got some really good options. And to your point earlier about the younger offensive line, the way I look at first-year offensive linemen, second-year offensive linemen is I expect nothing. And I can see there's almost nothing I can see that would be like, oh, that's a bad marker. There's plenty of stuff you can see that's a good marker. Ian Moore being the right tackle with the 2s at the end of the Tennessee game was like, okay, like that's a really positive marker for Ian Moore's future development. If you are a true freshman and you're not playing, or you're a true, even a redshirt freshman and you're not playing, unless you're getting passed by 4 guys who are younger than you, that means nothing to me. You assume just put those guys in what's the Han Solo is a carbonite? Is that right? Did I make the correct? Yes. Okay. There we go. I made the correct Tony reference. There we go. You put those guys in carbonite for 2 years and then you see what you got after that. You can, that's really probably not a bad thing to do with a lot of guys, or in terms of how you view people, because that way you avoid things like, looking at Terry McLaurin and Paris Campbell and going 2 years in, these guys suck. They haven't done anything. These guys are going to be terrible. They're busts. And then like, it turns out that that's not true. Michael Thomas redshirted his second year. Like sometimes it takes guys a little time to develop, and sometimes development is not a completely linear thing. And patience, this is true in a lot of areas of life, Tony, but especially in college football. Patience is a virtue. That is a good thing to have. Be willing to be a little bit patient with young guys as they develop. Ninja Gal says, "Hit that thumbs up, friends." Strong, agree. Go ahead.
Yes, please do that. Yeah, everybody loves patience, but they hate procrastination. Like, I see no difference between the two.
Let's see. Here's one from Jeff Johnson. Did Tony and Tommy know that these announcement shows will always branch into 2-hour shows? Tony, did I mention that I have to be at an ice rink that's 40 minutes from my house at 5:40? Actually, before 5:45, because that's the time my son's got to be on the ice. So we're leaving my house at like 4:45 or so.
All right.
So we will. I'm going to scroll through and we'll hit a couple more before we wrap it up.
Yeah, 45 minutes ago, Tom texted me. He's like, "Hey, we can wrap up if you want." I'm like, no. We don't need to wrap up just yet.
Well, number keeps going up. Doug Shepard Sr. says Tager played his most consistent during the playoffs and championship game. I think he was playing with an injury following the first Oregon game.
Yeah, well, and again, nobody's healthy by the playoffs, but they were as healthy as they could be, and I think everybody played well down the stretch in the playoffs. And it's crazy that worked out as well as it did. The rotation, and everybody got an opportunity to just sit back and watch from the sideline for a series or two, and then get back out there and correct what they needed to correct and focus on what they needed to focus on, and had a better idea of what they were going against. So I don't know if Ohio State has started something with that, and we start seeing more of that. I mean, based on the fact that those three guys all played well enough that you would think, I don't see one of them sitting this year, and now, Tom, we can't say this year. Let's just right now agree 2025 this year is this year. So like they're not going to want to not play. Like, they're not going to want to sit. So they're all going to keep working and certainly be better. And if they're good enough last year, wouldn't they be good enough this year?
Right. Yeah. The standard of play this past year, like if you were doing that against the Texas defensive line in the Cotton Bowl, well, you can probably do it against the Texas defensive line in the Horseshoe in a few months. So yeah, too many talented offensive linemen. That sounds like a problem. The way I worded it sounds like a problem. That's not a problem at all, because guess what? Someone's going to get banged up. You had guys get banged up during, the snap numbers fluctuate a little bit, and sometimes guys were a little bit banged up during the playoff. That's not a problem. Having Carson Hinsman there as a center, like, that's not a problem. Having, another strong interior guy. Having Ian Moore when you brought in 2 tackles through the transfer portal. That's not a problem. These are all good things. This is what's known as quality depth on the offensive line. I have to define that term because it's not something that Ohio State has had a ton in recent years. So this is all good news and good stuff for Ohio State. Market X says Tager was awesome in the playoffs. Get him an NIL deal with Skyline Chili. Oh. Tony, I have to ask you, did you see the ice cream from Graeter's? The Skyline Chili ice cream from Graeter's. Did you see that?
I remember hearing something about that, and I couldn't tell if this was ice cream or chili. You know what? I'm all for, like, Cincinnati loves Cincinnati, but some things should not love each other, Tom. I'm just saying. And Skyline Chili and Graeter's ice cream are 2 of those things. Would I try it? I mean, if we'll do anything. No, we won't. We'll do many things. We'll do many things for fun. But I wouldn't say no to a spoonful. Honestly, I'd rather eat Skyline Chili ice cream than Skyline Chili.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you feel like you know what you're getting. McChicken says, "Where's the big spenders? Keep the super chats coming, and they'll never leave." That's our weakness. That is, Tony, to tie it into to this next one. Margaret X says, "Tom speaks Leroy Jenkins nerd, but not Carbonite solo." Come on, Tony. Super chats, they are our kryptonite. See, so I'm diverse in my dorkiness. That's fine. Star Wars is not my particular flavor of dorkiness. Market X says he was disappointed. I believe it's just cinnamon flavored with oyster crackers. You know what? That's not bad. I'm down with cinnamon ice cream. Is always a good move. So cinnamon flavored ice cream with oyster crackers. That's interesting. I
mean, the crackers probably just going to have a waffle cone texture type of a cone texture, which is fine.
You could even put some chili powder in there, like a little bit of a spicy ice cream. That's not a bad point. Now, all right, Tony, I have an idea. What if we do Gold Star chili ice cream? That's my special trademark, registered copyright, can't be stolen.
Like as we're talking about this, Tom, right now, I mean, we've all done the French fries and the Frosty, right? What if you get Wendy's chili and a Wendy's Frosty, one spoon of this, spoon of that. I honestly, as I think about this, I don't think it would be that bad. I don't think it would be that bad. We can try this on one of our next road trips. Probably the next one would be media days, Big Ten media days.
You could try that on our next road trip, and you let me know how that goes. That's
it's a team thing, Tom.
Oh, well, team Tony Kevin can try that on our next road trip. That's wonderful. You know what? That sounds like a great thing for Kevin to do. We're always looking for something new and exciting for Kevin to do. So go ahead and get on Twitter right now. I don't see him in here. Go ahead and congratulate Kevin on the Wendy's Frosty chili challenge and him bravely choosing to accept that. How many Frosty chilies do you think we could get Kevin to eat for $1,000 in super chats?
I say $1.99 in super chats. Just $2 in super chats is all we need to get Kevin to eat a Frosty and a chili all together, one spoon, one man, 2 cups. I don't know if that's the right way to go about it.
Allow me to assure you, it is not. Doug Shepard says, I'm mad Kroger quit carrying the black walnut ice cream. I am Sue is mad. Sorry, Sue, we're not trying to make you leave. I think I talked about this on one of the shows. When we went to Atlanta, we drove to Atlanta and went past Cookout, which is one of my favorite Southern chains, and they have walnut milkshakes. Those are delightful. So if you're driving through the Mid-South at any point, treat yourself to Cookout, which is basically like a day's worth of food for like $7, and then get yourself, here we go. A day's worth of food for $7, and the walnut shake is delightful. So Glasswing Butterfly with an incredibly kind super chat. Thank you so much. Walnut shakes for Tom, Tony, and Kevin. It's walnut shakes for Tony and me, Frosties and chili for Kevin. So make sure, go ahead and follow up with that real quick. And
we will definitely make 2 stops. Yeah, yes, we will definitely make 2 stops. We will stop at Cookout for us, get 2 full meals for about $12 total dollars. And then we'll head over to Wendy's, and Kevin can get that Frosty and chili that he's been waiting for.
Sue says she had a dream once that she had to eat blood ice cream, and it tasted just like you'd think it would. Sue's a doctor. Like you should know better than to eat blood ice cream. I shouldn't need to tell you that. I didn't even go to medical school.
I'm sure they have that in like England, though.
Oh, see, this is Sue getting me back. See? Get you. And your
little dog too.
Yes. All right.
All right.
I think I'm just checking through our star. Yeah. Okay. We got that one starred. All right. So we are good. We are caught up. You guys are awesome. And one thing I love is we see a lot of these folks, a lot of these names we see on our board at BuckeyeHuddle.com as well. So if you enjoy talking to these folks, hey, a great place to do that would be at BuckeyeHuddle.com. That's where Tony, Kevin, and I are covering the team. Mark covers recruiting, got our whole team of, Ross Fulton, but we got our whole team of X's and O's guys, and Mickey Pettit and Devin Radcliffe and all those guys, Justin Whitlatch, all those guys there making you a smarter football fan, plus the really, really fun community, which, as you can tell, we have fun with the community. So you should join us there at BuckeyeHuddle.com.
And if you are still in the market for some championship confetti, we do still have some remaining. Of course, we have a post on the board about how members can get that if they want that. So you can sign up now, become a member, and if you want some confetti, we will get some out to you. So I almost want to just ramble for like another 50 seconds to get 90 minutes on this one, but I also know Tom does need to leave.
Well, hang on. I'm gonna just we're gonna just put together. This is like baby shoes never worn. This is McChicken says messaging Mr. Noon right now. And then the follow up. Kevin replied back. He said, quote, "Die. I'm thinking he's in a good mood tonight. Probably because of all the chili and Frosties."
Probably thinking about all that chili and the Frosty and thinking about them together. And I was thinking, do you need to freeze make the chili colder? No, you don't. You just want them right there in the car. And yes, you have to eat them in the car or eat them in the restaurant for everybody to see, preferably with a crowd. That's how Kevin likes to do all of his stunts, with everybody watching.
Doug, I was going to wait to punch this one up until I saw Sue's reaction to it. I wasn't sure how she would appreciate the word being characterized as a matriarch, but Doug says, "Don't get the matriarch El Suzabo mad, Tom. Believe me, no one is less interested in having Sue mad at me than me." So
there you go. So we do want to thank you, everybody. Thank you, Glasswing Butterfly, for that awesome super chat. Thank you, everybody, for those super chats. We do appreciate that. Thank you all for sticking around for 90 minutes with us talking about all of this. And again, check us out at BuckeyeHuddle.com. We'd love to see you there. And before you go, hit that thumbs up. That would be great as well. So thank you all for tuning in, and we will talk to you guys later.